Located 70 miles west of Accra in Ghana's central region, is one of the 28 forts and castles of Ghana listed as UNESCO's World Heritage Site. It sits at the summit of a coastal hill 150 feet above sea level next to the town of Abanzi, meaning the town below the fort in the native Fanti language. Originally named Fort Comanton, this fort was reputed to be the first of the English forts to be constructed on the Gold Coast, built to challenge the monopoly of the Dutch during the 17th century Anglo-Dutch Wars. The lodge was established in 1631, built into a fort in 1638, and finally completed in 1647 as the headquarters of English possession of the Royal African Company on the Gold Coast. It was a trading post where textiles, metals such as copper and brass, alcohol guns, and later other merchandise were sold in exchange for slaves. In Caribbean history of slave auctions, it had a notorious reputation as the source of the most rebellious slaves. In 1665, barely 18 years after it was completed, it was taken over by the Dutch in a sea attack which damaged the southern portions of the fort. The victorious Dutch renamed it Fort Amsterdam. In 1811, after 150 years of Dutch occupation, the fort became the object of conflict between the Dutch and the locals, suffering several attacks which brought its commercial life to a halt. After 150 years of little activity, it suffered a partial collapse. In 1951, the ruins were restored by the state. A small 24-gun fort of this size would house a governor, a captain, soldiers, and merchants of the company. The fort consisted of two double-story sections attached to the inner northern and southern curtain walls with a courtyard or ward between them. The southern curtain was a long two-story section, partially 3 stories in height, containing a council room or hall and governor's quarters. The rooms for the captains were attached to the western curtain under the walkway. For the construction of this structure, stone was obtained for quarries along the coast. Large quantities of ready-cut special stone and bent brick were imported from Europe and transported as ship ballast, which helped to balance the ship while it sailed. One can see the difference in stones used in previous restoration efforts. Flagstones were used for the top of the bastions, walkways, and pavement. It was essential to use tiles, a type of waterproof mortar, to keep rain from seeping in between the tiles. Imported bent brick can be seen used in the building's construction. The red, which is typically used by the English, and the yellow by the Dutch. Bricks were also used for constructing vaults, a way of spanning large spaces of the inner parts of the fort in medieval stone construction. Lime was the next biggest material used next to brick. It was derived from crushed cells and used for mortar, plaster, and whitewash for its waterproofing ingredient. The holes seen in the walls were all to hold timber members. Timber boards were used for upper floorings, ceilings, and roofing timber members. The stability of the fort required urgent attention. The southern western circular bastion has collapsed, showing only a trace of shallow foundations. Along with it is the southern walkways, which have also collapsed without a trace, and the diamond-shaped southeastern bastion, which is partially destroyed, primarily due to poor workmanship. The existing masonry of Fort Amsterdam presents an extensive state of damage characterized by wall misalignments and fractures caused by rain penetration into cracks, roots of plants growing in crevices on the wall surfaces, and soil erosion along the base of the western walls. Throughout the life of this monument, there's evidence that extensive repair and reconstructions were conducted, especially in the early 1950s by the state. Structural studies by experts show evidence that the fort is approaching a critical state. In 2022, the GMMB, through UNESCO and with funding from the French government, set up the Fort Amsterdam Structural Consolidation Project to save the fort. Architect Kojo Derban of Ethnic International is the chief architect on the project, working with the conservators from the Monuments Department of Ghana Museums and Monument Board. They have an urgent task to consolidate the structure of the fort to stop further damage. It was decided that to curb these problems, a series of measures needed to be taken. At the base of the fort, a 1-meter wide apron walkway was to be built at plinth level on the southern side and around the steep western part of the fort to stem erosion. Cracks were to be filled with lime grout. The walls were to be clear of all vegetation, roots, and stumps. The bastion tops were to be reconstructed to stop rain penetration. Rock samples of a matching color and texture were selected from various quarries around the region for the reconstruction of the apron walkway.